In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at colder times, but as we mentioned yesterday, kind of for the first time in a while, there is some hope that this is going to clear up and give way to a much more summer-like pattern here coming up in about a week or two. So we're going to be discussing this. Activity is going to be on the increase. I'm still standing with my prediction that June is going to be a much more active month, both in terms of thunderstorms, precipitation, and severe weather, really compared to normal overall. So that is still the case. But definitely hoping for this warm up. You guys know that is what I'm definitely hoping for. And yeah, let's just watch this play out here on the models. So we're using our European ensemble model. You're going to get a more accurate medium to long range look at the pattern when you're looking at the ensemble models. Because instead of it just being a single model like what we typically look at, this is actually a blend of 20 to 30 members, all very similar to the European model. They're all in the European family, and it takes the mean average of all of those. So when you get a greater consensus opinion from all of these models, and you get strong indicators in the medium to long range, that's obviously going to be a more accurate prediction than a singular opinion. So keep that in mind as we work our way through this. That is why we tend to use ensemble models in situations such as this, where there is a potential shift happening in the long range that we're watching for. We always will kind of lean on these models. We can see that we are still below normal along the eastern seaboard, but as we've been predicting for weeks, the 4th might give way to a little bit of a warmer time frame here across the eastern states, much cooler in the central states and central Canada area, and still warmer along that western seaboard. That warm area along that western seaboard is what's going to continue to bring the cool air into the eastern states, at least for the time being. So as we move forward, that was Wednesday. Let's take a look at Friday the 6th. Still very similar, cold in the central, warm on both coasts. As we work our way towards Saturday the 7th, that cold is creeping eastward, and we actually do see it kind of take over here as we approach the 10th. This is a classic positive PNA look out west, and a classic result of a positive PNA in the east here, with the cold air really just taking over. You might take note that these are all lighter shades of blue, lighter shades of orange around. That is because it is an ensemble model. We're 200 hours out here. And because there's 30 different members and we're taking the mean average of those, as they begin to spread out a little bit with their opinions, we do get what's called averaging out happening. And that is what this is, where it's going to be a little bit of lighter indications. We're not going to see the deep, greens, purples, and pinks popping up on the map, even if we are expecting far below average temperatures. Oftentimes it is going to look a lot less intense when we're seeing it on these models. So we mostly just want to pay attention to the yellows and reds overall and the blue areas. So we want to pay attention to where the cold air is and where the warm air is, not as much the intensity here. Although the intensity can indicate the actual strength of the amount of these models that are agreeing. But overall, the majority are calling for cold here in the east. The majority are calling for warm there in the west is the consensus here. And as we move forward, we see that it stays a little bit cool. This is through the 12th, 13th, 14th, but look at the east. It's beginning to warm. This is the 14th here, and this is a really, really good sign. If you want actual summer conditions here in the central and eastern states, you want the west cooling down like this. We see a massive warm up there in the central and the eastern states. Again, it does not matter that it's just yellows and oranges there, just a few degrees above average, because in almost every case, this would be more intense than what this model is calling for if it does happen, which there's a very strong indication that this could be occurring. We are at hours 300, which is for sure the extended range, so we want to take this with a grain of salt, but again, our ensemble model is our best bet here. So it's definitely the thing to be looking at. So this potential long-term flip to a warmer pattern would be taking place right before the midway point of the month. Let's call it the 13th or 14th, maybe even a little bit before. We could be seeing that. And really, although we get a little bit of some cooler temperatures in the southeast at times and along the eastern seaboard, we keep a majority cold, at least in the western states. And this is going to allow for mostly warmth to work its way into a lot of the central especially, but also the eastern states. With all that being said, let's take a look at some of these storm systems that we're going to be seeing moving around the nation. And here's by this afternoon. We're going to be watching the Rockies here for some low pressure system development. There's also one up here in Minnesota, and you probably can't see it on screen, but in northern, what is that, Saskatchewan. Up there, we are seeing a pretty large low as well. Actually, the strongest one on screen way up there. So there's a lot of broad low pressure, I guess, is a great way to look at it. And this is just causing a plethora of pockets of precipitation in these areas. Everything going on in the deeper south and Caribbean there is going to be more of your typical summertime thunderstorms that we are seeing occur there across the southeast. Let's keep going. I want to take us towards Tuesday, tomorrow on the 3rd. And what we're seeing is a little bit of a stronger low up there in eastern Canada, a little bit of a weaker one over in Wisconsin. But overall, I think our cold front is mostly under that, and we're seeing mostly a warm front effect there to the east. So this is right around when we are starting to see warmer air work its way in, but we're also seeing this cold, dry air work its way in behind that cold front. And when all of that interacts, which is really what we're seeing happening here, that's when we get these big thunderstorm events, those big severe weather events. In addition to that, we also do have this kind of Gulf flow of moisture and precipitation, and again, overall thunderstorms for that deep southeast area. I'm going to take it straight towards Wednesday here, and that's going to be the 4th. And same thing, we have more of a cold front taking place there, but it does become, I would say, probably more stationary than anything, which is going to lessen the severe weather chances along it over time. But for the most part, this could lead to more rainfall, because instead of this moving progressively towards the southeast in a linear fashion, we're likely seeing the storms actually moving along the line. We call that a train effect, because each cell in that frontal boundary is going to act like a train cart, kind of just moving along the track. And you can imagine if you're in, like, let's call it northern Indiana here, you're getting hit with cell after cell after cell of heavy rainfall. That is going to accumulate to gargantuan amounts of rainfall as compared to a system that would be moving more progressively, where you just get a brief thunderstorm line or, heavier showers. Hope that makes sense. Across the Rockies, there is some precipitation just hanging around, and we'll be watching pretty closely. Whenever we see this like cluster of activity, you could always see a low just develop along it. So we'll see if we get another one here. We continue to get this Gulf flow of moisture, obviously, with, again, thunderstorms in the southeast. And by Thursday, this is a really messy look, kind of hard to break it down, but here's your original kind of, for the most part, stationary front. Again, lots of precipitation and potential for thunderstorms along that. Also, this deep southeast area, continuing to see that moisture. And this activity behind is becoming a lot more flat, a lot more horizontal in nature. We'll continue to watch for low there, but probably mostly showers, and then in the plains, thunderstorms. By Friday, we don't really get a low, but there is some low pressure in there. It's not a very strong low at all, but we get a warm front look, and it looks like it wants to develop a cold front underneath to me. This could be our next threat for at least some severe weather, perhaps across some of the plains here, lower Midwest areas, definitely going to be involved as well. And we continue to just see this activity here. Anything like this, I mean, it's worth noting that if we get a lot of precipitation, we could even be watching for some very, very weak tropical development on something like this. That would be, interesting to bring up. But when we get this time of year, June, July, a lot of times you can get those weak, tropical depressions, maybe even a low-level tropical storm developing in this kind of like, the two areas I would watch for typically for that is this kind of eastern Gulf area, and then off the southeast, where we can see that happen sometimes. Not saying it's going to happen here, but definitely interesting to think about. And then we do get a low out of this system in the northeast. This is our one that came from the Rockies, but it's over New York here by Saturday. A little bit of a dragging cold front, warm front look here. So probably the eastern seaboard is relatively warm still by the 7th. But this is ushering in that cold, dry air that is going to make a return, as the Arctic blasts aren't really ending yet, as we've noted earlier. Really, by this point, the main driving factor, this is between Sunday and Monday, 8th and 9th. We see a 991 low there south of the Hudson Bay, kind of like southwest of it. And definitely an impactful cold front across the upper Midwest and northern plains. And this is going to be another kind of like severe weather thunderstorm threat to watch for. And then we get more of these stagnant thunderstorms across the deeper south areas from Texas, Oklahoma eastward through the deep south and southeast. Again, these can bring severe weather, but really just like a lot of saturation in there, just a lot of thunderstorms. And that's going to be typical as we move through June and July, of course. As we see by Monday afternoon, a lot of the Great Lakes are seeing that banned from that cold front. And by Tuesday, the 10th, everything gets interesting because we have this low here, a little bit of a frontal boundary, but then we get this Gulf moisture moving up, and it's really hard to tell where the cold front ends and the tropical moisture begins because it's all kind of interacting. So this could just be an East Coast day overall where all of these areas, along the deep south and eastern states are seeing a threat of potential thunderstorms, heavy showers, stuff like that. Also worth noting that by this point, we definitely have a ridge in the west, trough in the east, which we already noted earlier that the 10th would be a cooler time frame perhaps here. So everything's kind of adding up perfectly. Wednesday the 11th, again, eastern seaboard seeing a lot of activity. Thursday the 12th, there is still some down here, and we're getting like an explosion of moisture over the western Gulf areas like Texas and Louisiana. So we see anything like that, again, just got to kind of watch for that little slim chance of tropical development. We do see some thunderstorms flaring up here across a lot of the plains and Midwest again. Wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of frames we see some low pressure forming there. So let's just take a look. And it looks like it wants to. I mean, especially by this frame, we get some lower pressure in here and, thunderstorms really popping up. But I'm wondering if it is even going to bring itself together. This more ends up just being like a purely just stormy look in the east. I mean, there is no organization here really, no rhyme or reason. It's just a ton of mess. And that's what we're seeing by the 14th here. Definitely worth noting that we are at 300 hours, so take it with a grain of salt. Things will certainly look a lot different, or at least a little bit different by the time we're getting to this point. But the overall pattern is what we're trying to pick up on here at this point, not specific details. But by Sunday the 5th, some interesting stuff. Northern Rockies seeing snowfall, which isn't unheard of for June, but it is certainly interesting, and it is pretty late. So certainly some cold air intruding there, which, again, funny enough, this is exactly when we were talking about that negative PNA, the colder temperatures along the west developing. So that would definitely aid in supporting this potential snowfall in the Rockies and the Canadian Rockies as well. We're definitely getting this warm push in the east by this point. A lot of low pressure out west. Definitely interested in this Colorado one, but still a cluster of storms just in the east in general there by Sunday the 15th. Monday the 16th, which will be our final frame. Unfortunately, we have a strong 992 there over south central Canada. A little bit of a cold front here over the northern plains and upper Midwest, definitely causing some thunderstorms and maybe even severe weather. Thunderstorms along the east, and once again, another time frame where we might have to watch for some low pressure trying to develop. This is a very classic area, and typically this time of year when they develop, it would either kind of move off the southeast. Sometimes they move inland up the east coast, become big rainmakers, but typically we're not thinking in terms of a very, very strong wind-driven tropical system. It's more like a very heavy rainmaker. Typically, they bring cooler temperatures as well. Worth noting this time of year. But that could be some big rainmakers. Typically, it's going to feel a lot more like a nor'easter when you get tropical activity moving up the east this time of year. So it's not the end of the world, but it is certainly something to think about and pay attention to, especially when this pattern just seems so supportive of development there in the Gulf or southeast. A few times we've noted it, so we're going to be paying attention to that the next few days, of course. Total precipitation would obviously look a lot bigger in this area if there was any tropical development. Of course, on this model there isn't yet. We do see overall a lot of these areas, and really 90% of it is probably above average precipitation, but Central Plains into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Upper Midwest, and Great Lakes, this area is really the highlight region. Then also this immediate southeast area is very, very high in the precipitation department. So when we look at the anomalies, we see pretty well above average here for some of those, again, plains and Midwest locations, as well as the deeper southeast, and quite a bit drier over the northwest corner of the nation. So that's kind of the overall trend here. Storm Prediction Center outlooks. Here's day 1, Monday on June 2nd. And as you can see, we have 2 lighter green areas, and what that is your general thunderstorm risk area. We expect general thunderstorms there, but we do not expect necessarily severe weather. But this is very tricky to forecast, and anything is possible. So I always tell you guys to heed every watch, warning, and advisory. We have 2 darker green areas there, which is going to be your level 1 marginal risk of severe weather, where we expect isolated severe weather reports to come in. So again, Florida and then a lot of the central states there. We also see that yellow region kind of across a lot of your plains. That is your level 2 slight risk, where we expect more scattered about severe weather for today. Tomorrow for day 2, which will be Tuesday the 3rd, very similar. A couple of general thunderstorm risk areas, a large marginal risk area from Texas all the way to the Great Lakes, and then a slight risk from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas into like the Midwest in general, Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin area. So another day with some severe weather activity expected. And then day 3, which will be Wednesday the 4th here, we only have a general thunderstorm risk area that is very oddly shaped and quite large as well. Then we have 2 marginal risk regions as well, one for the Ohio Valley, then one down there for the 4 corner states. We do have 1 extended day to look at, and that is going to be for Thursday on the 5th. And we see that yellow area across Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, and that translates roughly to a slight risk of severe weather. So we will be watching for that over the coming days as well. Speaking of the coming days, we do upload every single day, so be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload. I don't know why I messed that one up, but when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.